Welcome back to the Chatterjack Podcast. Today I'm joined by Alan. Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, no problem, Lindsay. My name's Alan Prince. I am Head of Operations at Sellafield Limited. In terms of my personal life, I went to school at St Benedict's locally within Whitehaven. And in terms of my home life, I have 4 children of varying ages and 1 lovely wife.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it, taking time out of probably what seems like a busy job down in Sellafield. So before we get into that, I'm going to get you to go right back to the start. And obviously you mentioned you went to St Benedict's School. So what did you study at school?
My key topics that I was really good at school were maths, English, science, more maths and science, so probably your typical, very mathematical. So the science aspect was all the math again, the physics, etc. I probably wasn't that creative at school in terms of the work like you do. But yeah, pretty much the maths, English, and the science.
Nice. Okay. So tell us, I'm going to get you to jump forward and then we'll go back again. So head of operations, what does that mean for our listeners? What does that mean? What does that job? What do you do?
So I've got an organisation of about 300 personnel, both directly reportable to me and indirectly reportable to me. I look after a suite of facilities on the Sellafield site that do effluent treatment before the effluent goes out into the environment.
Mm-hmm.
There's 48 buildings, 10 which you would consider significant sized facilities, and those people that work for me both directly and indirectly are operations staff, maintenance staff and engineering staff, and then you get things like your health physics, your technical people, your op support, etc.
Got you. So quite a busy role.
Yes.
Busy job and a quite busy role.
Yeah, the people side of things makes it really busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something you enjoy?
Yeah, so if I link back to school, so I was fairly quiet at school. Probably got on better with adults than I did with my own peer group in terms of fitting in. But I did have a decent group of friends at school, but kept myself fairly quiet, very much introvert. It's interesting that I've ended up in the role that I'm in, and that I enjoy the things that I do, because it's worlds away from that. So when I left school, I ended up doing an apprenticeship, advanced modern apprenticeship in mechanical engineering.
Okay.
It was a bit mix of mechanical and electrical when I did mine, but it was predominantly focused on mechanical. And I eventually ended up doing a degree whilst working, an engineering degree. And I moved into a more technical engineering field. I then ended up line managing people, and I found I really enjoyed the line management of people, and I really enjoyed the interaction I was having with operations, so the plant and what it does. And eventually I moved out of engineering, moved into operations management, and it's just grew from there, really. Like I said, I've found that, contrary to how I was at school, I really do enjoy the people management side of things, the leadership side of things.
Interesting. So kind of a nice little progressive journey there.
Yeah.
Like the sound of that. So I guess on a day-to-day then, is there a typical day? And if so, what does it sort of look like?
There isn't. It's very varied, and it can be quite reactive. So even though we've got to plan ahead and look strategically, 10, 20, 30, 50 years into the future, a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis within my organisation is quite reactive, dealing with events, dealing with issues. I'll attend work, and the majority of my day at work is spent in meetings looking to solve problems. It's spent sitting with people, talking with people. There's an awful lot of emails fly around at Sellafield, but you don't really get the chance in a head of operations role to address those through the day. So sometimes there's a few evening hours spent once the kids are in bed answering emails. But it's enjoyable because it's so varied, and you get out and about and you're talking to people and you're dealing with different problems every day in order to just keep the facilities running, keep them going.
Amazing. So I guess you mentioned some transferable skills there that you've learned as your career's progressed. So things such as to do your job and probably to do it well. Certain things like, I'm going to say, communication skills are really important. Would you agree?
Yeah, communication's really important. Resilience is really important, especially working at Sellafield. Resilience at Sellafield is really important because, rightfully so, we've got some very bureaucratic processes to ensure that we remain safe, and you've got to be able to navigate through those and keep your chin up and keep pushing forward, even when there's obstacles in your way.
How do you learn that skill?
I think there's a mix of nature and nurture. I think you learn resilience as you grow up through your childhood, and then depending on the career path you choose, that then gets further solidified by the types of work that you do. But yes, communication and resilience are really important.
Okay. And so then when you were at school, you mentioned that you were quite quiet, quite reserved. So was it sort of going into the apprenticeship that facilitated you, where you learned your communication skills, or was that just as you've gone on?
I think it was when I got my first job. So my first job was at West Cumberland Hospital as a mechanical maintenance fitter. And I was thrust into an environment of like people that were a lot older than me. And for some reason, I naturally ended up leading some of those people, despite the fact that they were a lot older than me. I think it was because I was really interested in my job that I was doing. I was really driven by work. There's a little bit of a workaholic in me, so like I love what I do. You know, I'll spend time doing things in relation to work outside of work because I enjoy my jobs. So I naturally ended up just picking up more and more, learning more and more. And as I did that, I found some of the older people would turn to me and, you know, want my advice on things as well, not just me looking for their advice. So I think that's where it all stems from.
Got you.
Yeah.
And you were there for about
5 years, yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed it there. One of the best jobs I've ever had. Really good bunch of people. Good. Very much a family feel. Spent a little bit of time on shifts when I was there as well. I used to really enjoy the shift working.
Got you.
Yeah.
That's not for everybody, is it?
No, but yeah.
For me.
I don't particularly like getting up in the morning, so I used to enjoy the night shifts because I'm a bit of a night owl. And I didn't really like the first shifts, but I liked the fact that you had time off through the day as well, so you could spend time with your family. I think you've got to look at what drives you as well. So I had my first child really, really young. I wasn't quite out of my apprenticeship when I had my first child, and me and my wife Laura moved in together, got a house at 20-year-old, and we were obviously looking after a baby. So straight away I was driven to earn money, provide for the family, which is a strong value that I have. I think comes from my childhood and my parents working. So I was constantly out working to earn money for the family, but at the same time I enjoyed doing it.
Yeah. Interesting. And then that chapter sort of came to a bit of an end, and you moved into. Did you go straight to Sellafield at that point?
Yeah. So whilst I was good at school in terms of the academia, I never ever really enjoyed it. I also enjoyed the practical stuff better, which is why I ended up doing stuff with my hands, working on mechanical assets. And when I started my apprenticeship, obviously we have to go to college. So I've done my ONC and HNC. And then I couldn't wait for college to be over. And I just wanted that part out the way so I could just focus on the practical element. So my apprenticeship come to an end, and I was then out of education, and I was just doing my job, doing my work, and I enjoyed it. And then I remember somebody telling me about a person who used to work there who was a chartered engineer.
Okay.
And I remember the way that person spoke about that chartered engineer and the regard that he had for him. And something clicked with me that said, I want to do that. I want to be a chartered engineer. I want to get to that level. And I'd probably been out of education for about 3 years at this point. So when I say out of education, being educated whilst working at the same time. So like day release, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'd asked for some support in doing further education. And the support was offered, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for. And at the same time, Sellafield were doing a recruitment campaign.
Amazing.
And I knew the reputation Sellafield had for developing its people. So I chose that time to go to Sellafield. And I did that in the hope that it would allow me to progress my career further. Had I stayed at the hospital, I think I would have eventually ended up in managerial positions within the estates department at the hospital.
Yeah.
But I think my progression would have been much slower, would have took much longer. And
knowing you, I think I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't think I would have got that academic aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you joined as the mechanical service engineer, and that was in 2006.
Yeah,
was it?
2006. Yeah.
And so what was that? What does that mean? What kind of things was involved with that job?
So mechanical craftsperson at Sellafield. I was working on cranes, doing planned maintenance activities on cranes and fixing cranes. So cranes that run on rails overhead in buildings.
Mm-hmm.
I was working on passenger and lifts, goods lifts, elevators. I was working on steam lines, service lines, water systems, etc. And then I was working on production facilities, fixing mechanical assets. So all of that type of thing. One of the things I will say is that I did that for 2 years before I then got the opportunity to do an assistant team leader role, and at the same time got an opportunity to do a degree.
Okay. Wow. So that came both at the same time.
So 2 years after work, the two things came at the same time, but 2 years after being at Sellafield. And I think if I was giving advice to people just joining that company now, it would be patient, because I think often now you see there's a rush to get up the ladder as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And people don't realise how many years they've got ahead of them. I've been working at Sellafield now for almost 20 years. And things don't just happen within 2 or 3 months of starting. You've got to get in position, prove your capability, get the buy-in of your leaders, and then you progress from there. Yeah. It takes time.
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think when you're young, when you're in your early 20s, you think time's running out. And then I look now, I'm like 42 now, and I've got the same. It's been a long journey the last 20 years, but I've still got another 20 years ahead, hopefully.
Yeah.
So yeah. So there's plenty of time. What I would say to people is don't rush it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some really good advice, actually, and I think you're right. I think we're all guilty of it, and this is how I've ended up here. So
yeah.
I can relate to that, to be honest. So then you did that job, and you got the opportunity to do the team leader role or the degree. So what path did you take?
Oh, sorry, I did the both at the same time.
Oh, wow,
so
right, okay.
I did took on the assistant team leader role, and at the same time started the degree. But the degree was day release, so 1 day a week down at the college, which was affiliated with a university.
Amazing.
So I did it that way.
Got you. And what was the degree that you studied?
Mechanical engineering.
Got you.
Which, to be fair, I don't do a lot of mechanical engineering anymore. I make a lot of decisions, and I look after plants that have a lot of mechanical engineering issues. But I don't utilise that skill set as much as I once did. So that's another thing, really. It's like the thing you're doing today might not be the thing you're doing tomorrow. When I was doing the mechanical engineering degree, because I was doing the mechanical engineering degree, I quite quickly moved from being an assistant team leader to being what used to be called tech support, and what eventually became system engineering, so maintenance technical support.
Yeah.
And what then became system engineering. And it was when I was doing the system engineering, I was one of the first system engineers at Sellafield, that we started to build the team up. The team started to get bigger and bigger, to the point where we needed someone to lead the team. And because I was one of the early adopters of the role, I ended up leading that team.
So that's quite important. It feels like you said yes at the right time.
Yeah, if you're looking for career progression, I think I probably didn't have this idea in my mind when it happened to me, but you need to look for where the vacuums are. So, like as an example, when Sellafield first set up system engineering, there was a lot of people who were reluctant to go towards it.
Yeah.
Which meant there's a vacuum there. It needed people.
Yeah.
And I moved towards that for the right reasons at the time. It was something I was interested in. It's something that I thought I would enjoy. But almost by accident, it also meant I was an early adopter, a front runner, and it pushed me towards the top of that organisation at that time.
That's some good advice as
So
well.
yeah,
Kind of spot the opportunities that
Yeah.
come in and sort of embrace them, as opposed to to kind of maybe not go against them, but you
Yeah.
know what I mean, not push yourself forward.
Absolutely. Move towards things. Don't move away from them. Be an early adopter. You know, jump in with both feet. You never know what opportunities are going to arise. If you hold off and you hang back, it's too late because everybody else has jumped on the bandwagon. I suppose it's a bit like, you know, the daft example like Bitcoin. The people who got in early made a lot of money.
Yeah.
The people who came in after, not really.
Not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolute good example, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
So you went into the sort of system engineering. You did that role for a good couple of years, I think.
I think I'm trying to think now, but I think I was a system engineer for a couple of years. I think I was a lead system engineer after that for a couple of years, which increased like my scope of responsibility. And then I moved into being an ops manager, which was the dream job for me at the time.
Yeah.
I thought I'd reached the pinnacle of my career. Couldn't believe it when I got the job. I've still got a memory whereby I was in a car school and I got a lift home and I got dropped off at the top of my road and it was a nice sunny day like this. And I can remember walking down the hill towards me. I was thinking, how the bloody hell have I ended up in this position? With like, so I think I was in my mid to late 20s. Suddenly had 75 people in my organisation.
Got you.
After previously having only led a team of about 8 or 9 people.
Yeah.
And I had a production facility that I was in charge of. But I was confident in myself. I knew I could do it. And obviously the leaders that appointed me had confidence in me from their experience of me in the previous role. Yeah.
I bet that was an exciting day.
It was good, yeah. And then, like I say, I've moved on from there. You know, I did the operations manager role, which was brilliant. I loved that job. In our Magnox decanning facility, which decanned nuclear fuel, dismantled nuclear fuel. That was, you know, a brilliant job. Great people to work with. And then I eventually ended up doing senior ops manager and head of operations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so was it kind of in that world, was it risky? Was it kind of, there was any sort of things that you thought, oh gosh, there's things that come along the day-to-day stuff of, you know, being in charge of that many people, anything that presented a bit of a oh gosh moments for you?
I don't think so. So at Sellafield, the risks in terms of what we deal with are really well controlled, very well controlled. The thing that jumps into my mind when you say that, the biggest risks in how you treat your people. Obviously, this is a leadership podcast, so it genuinely is, though. It's like those people will come to you with issues and problems and they're looking for your help and your support. And the biggest risk is you get that wrong and you switch that person off from being an engaged individual within your organisation, or you do something that affects them, you know, from a mental perspective, or they go home thinking and worrying about how they're being treated at work.
Yeah.
So for me, your biggest risk is your people and how you keep them on board. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And then you went from head of operations on one side to then you've moved.
I have.
Role.
So
Yeah.
I did
about that.
I did a interim head of operations role. Interim or temporary, however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
So I was the temporary head of operations twice, both for 9-month periods, so quite significant. One of them through the COVID pandemic, which was
Wow.
really challenging, really interesting, trying to keep a nuclear facility operational whilst everyone just wanted to stay at home because they were frightened about what COVID was. When I was doing those 9 months, the second 9 months through the COVID pandemic in particular, it was really important that we kept those facilities running, because that one of those facilities in particular was keeping the nation's lights on.
Got you.
So the power stations throughout the UK send fuel up to us to empty their ponds out so that they can restock those ponds with fuel that's coming out of their reactors so they can refuel the reactors. And if we'd have stopped taking that fuel, eventually the power stations can't operate. So there was a national imperative that helped with keeping people on board in terms of attending work.
Yeah.
And the key thing throughout that was communication. So, I was going in and doing verbal briefings in canteens. I was doing blogs, which I'd never done before.
Yeah.
And I was sending the blogs out via email to home accounts as well, so because I was trying to keep connected with the people who were working from home as well.
Yeah.
So I did that. That was never going to be permanent, because it was temporary, and I was a couple of grades lower than what's needed for that role.
Yeah.
So I then went off to do some broadening to develop myself. I'd been around that facility for a good few years. So I went to Fellside Combined Heat and Power Plant, just outside of Sellafield, and I did a head of operations role there. I did that for a couple of years, and I've since moved back onto the site, and I'm now looking after the low active effluent management group.
Amazing. So when you were at the Fellside that you did your MBA? Is that right?
It was. So one of the...
That's a Master's for Business Administration.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things that happened, so I really didn't... I loved being in Magnox East River, which is a suite of facilities that I'd worked within at Sellafield for about 15 years before I moved out. It's that broad of a suite of facilities. It allowed me to keep moving around to different areas and developing. But it had become part of my DNA, and I loved working there. And I really wanted that temporary position to become permanent.
Yeah.
And we talk about leaders who influence us. I remember a leader sitting down with me and saying, look, Alan, you've had a really tough ride for the last sort of 6, 7, 8 years. You've done some really tough roles. Why don't you, take a break?
Yeah.
Go and do the broadening. Come back, and have a think about, do you want to do something else whilst you've got that opportunity of less pressure?
Wow.
So do you want to do an MBA? And weirdly, I had been thinking about doing an MBA and was undecided as to whether to do one. And when he said that, I thought, yeah, that would be a good idea. So initially when I left, this is something that your listeners need to be careful of. So initially when I left Magnox East River, I went back to a senior operations manager role first before I got the Fellside role. And that was supposed to be for a year or two in another area to learn that area. So I thought, I can do that, and I'll do an MBA as well. So I kicked off the MBA, and then within 6 months, the head of ops job came up at Fellside. So I ended up doing an MBA and being head of ops at the same time. So that was quite challenging.
You want to snatch of Laura and the kids' face?
No. The MBA was like a 3-year MBA that I did in 2 years, because you had the opportunity to accelerate and do it in 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Tom earlier, who helps you set this up. And I was explaining that if you do something like a degree course, such as, I don't know, an engineering degree, an MBA, you don't necessarily need to do it for your employer. You do it for yourself.
Yeah.
There's lots of people that move up through the organisation without needing academic qualification, and I don't think it's ever been my academic qualification that's got me moving up through Sellafield. It's been my demonstration of performance.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed doing the MBA because it solidified all the things that I'd learned, through experience.
Yeah.
It put more detail around that. It filled in some gaps. and then it left me in a position where I could go away and think, yeah, I am the right person in the right role. You know, Tom and I were talking a little bit earlier about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
The academic qualification sometimes just gives you that little bit of a, yeah, you are you are qualified, you are all right. You haven't just made it by accident.
Yeah.
And nobody makes it by accident, but that's sometimes how we make ourselves feel.
We absolutely do. Yeah. Can relate to that also.
Yeah.
So I guess doing that MBA, so you'll have learned I'm going to say a wildly different skill set perhaps, and you've done very sort of engineering focus, that kind of thing, and in your MBA it's a bit wider. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Doing engineering and engineering degree is very, very technical and very deep in terms of looking at a specific field. Doing something like an MBA is very generic and very broad and looks across a whole topics. And the MBA touches a lot more on people, the psychology of people, why some organisations work, why some don't. And it gets into things like anthropology, where it's like how your brain works, how the clan systems work and how that works within organisations. My own personal experience and what I've seen works best is when you've done something that says, right, I've got that ability to go deep and quite technical.
Yeah.
And then second to that, after that, I've then got that ability to be a jack of all trades, if you like, because then people know that if you can be deep in one area, you can move across and you can look deep in another area.
Down. Yeah.
So at Sellafield, they call it, in engineering, they used to call it the T-shaped engineer. Being
got you. Okay.
really deep at one thing, but being capable across a broad spectrum.
Ah, nice. I like that theory. I'm a visual person, so
I
can absolutely see that, and it makes complete sense to me. So, I guess you've kind of got a wealth of education and background and everything that you've learned along the way. So when you were, I'm going to peel you right back now, so we've kind of covered that ground. And when you were at school, I always like to ask people, what would have been written on your school report, Alan?
I went through different stages of school. When you said you were going to go back to school, I was like, oh no.
Either are we talking?
It always said that I had good academic capability.
Mm-hmm.
It varied from saying I had a small, close-knit group of friends to I had a broad, wide-ranging group of friends. And I think that did change at various points.
Got you.
So there are points throughout my school life where I would be quite introvert and want to just keep to myself type scenario. And then there are points where I'd try to put myself out there a bit more. So my school report would have reflected on that. Overall, I was good at school. I'd get into trouble once in a while and get up to mischief, and I got quite a stubborn attitude. If some of my line managers at work would probably say I've still got that. If I feel like I've got a conviction in regards to something, I'll fight for that conviction. And I'll be quite
tenacious as a
I'll
person.
be quite an awkward character if my values are challenged. So there are times when, not very often, where that happened at school, and that's when I would start, in the teacher's eyes, being a bit less well behaved. But overall, I was quite well behaved, and I did what I was supposed to do. Yeah.
So touching on core values then, so does that drive some of your leadership style and how you operate? And how do you learn what your core values are?
I once, so again, another lady that had an impact on me, I once remember getting asked, so I'd been an ops manager in the Decanners at this point, and I was applying for a talent pool, and I had done no sort of leadership training, I'd done no reading of books or anything like that. And I got asked, so you're like mid to late 20s, Alan. You've got guys on shift who are like 50, 60-year-old.
Yeah.
Why did they listen to you? you know. And at the time I was like, I don't know. I said, I am who I am.
Yeah.
I talk to people, I tried to get along with people,
Yeah.
and I just find that to do. But the question stuck with me. So I started making it my business to learn more about myself and what was it that was working, and the times when it doesn't work, why is it not working?
Yeah.
Because there are times where it won't work. So I started reading a lot of leadership books, and I started doing some leadership training at work, and that's when I really started to learn about myself. So that's where it's like the nature and nurture.
Yeah.
So I had learned through experience. I'd learned through my interactions with my parents. I'd learned through my interactions with my friends. And then when I got further on in my career, I learned to understand, well, why does that work like that? In terms of values, though, I do genuinely care about people. I do tend to put people first, and I'll spend other people first, and I'll spend time like talking to people, getting to know people, trying to help them.
Yeah.
There are times where you're in a leadership position and management position, and you've got to communicate a tough message. So you haven't got to be scared of that. You've got to be able to do both.
Yeah.
You know, firm and fair, if you like. And then the other thing, going back to that piece of my character where I can be quite stubborn. If I think somebody's, trying to overpower me or do something that's not right for the business, or aren't behaving in a manner that's appropriate, I'm usually quite firm on, right, we need to tackle that. We need to have a conversation.
Firm boundaries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you read quite a bit. If there were 3 books that you were going to say, starting out your career, thinking about, if you could tell young Alan leaving school sort of thing, read these 3 books, what would you start with?
So, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Oh, nice.
Which I think is Lacorny, if I remember rightly. Not sure.
I'm looking at Tom for inspo, and he's thinking about it as well.
So 5 Dysfunctions of a Team always stuck in my head, but I read that about 12 months after being in my ops manager position.
Okay.
Everyone usually throws this one in. Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Or the third one would be Leaders Eat Last.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Got you.
But the only thing I would say is I wouldn't tell 16-year-old Alan coming out of school to read those books, because I don't think they mean anything to you until you've had the experience.
Yeah.
So again, I was talking to Tom earlier. I've found that it's more valuable to go out there and get the experience, and then do the learning to understand the experiences that you've had.
Got you.
Now, I know that's not everybody's route, but that's what I've found most useful, as opposed to go and learn about it and then experience it. You learn an awful lot more after you've had the experience. Yeah.
Definitely. So I guess then I've got a couple of questions that people have asked me to ask you, actually. So
all right, okay.
I've got the first one is what is something that people don't know or wouldn't expect about working in the nuclear industry?
Obviously, we're all walking around like little green men, and we're polluting the environment and this, that, and the other. So yeah, and we should be shutting down Sellafield. So a couple of things on some of that. Our mission at Sellafield is, or our vision is, to create a clean and safe environment for future generations. Sellafield Limited is a company in its own right that is contracted to clean up the Sellafield site. And the Sellafield site's there because it's been part of our critical national infrastructure for decades. So we've got a legacy that we've got to deal with, and what we're doing in Sellafield is we're cleaning up that legacy, and we're making sure that it is safe for future generations and safe for current generations, which it is. Our role is completely focused on keeping everything within the site, putting it into a safer state, and we're not all walking around like little grey men. But yeah, so I've had people challenge me before that to say, Sellafield should be shut down. Well, it's kind of what we're doing. We're shutting the facilities down, but sometimes we've got to build new facilities to get the materials that we've got in old facilities into safer storage.
Got you.
So yeah, that would be that.
Like it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then I've got another one. In order for future generations to be safe, what would you change if there was a couple of things that you would be like, right, if you were the boss today of Sellafield, you had that big job, what would you change?
It's a difficult one, this. So our processes and procedures are in place, rightfully so, to make sure that we do things as safely as we possibly can. But sometimes I believe we apply really stringent processes and procedures that are there to protect us against really difficult and complex tasks. I believe we apply that to everything, and I don't believe it always needs to be applied to everything. So I believe there are times when we can just use our common sense, do the 1 minute risk assessment that says, I probably need some gloves, some long sleeve coveralls, maybe a hard hat, and just crack on and get it done. Because there are some low complexity, simple tasks that we should be able to just get done. I think for me, it's how do we quicken the pace of what we do at Sellafield to reduce cost to the taxpayer. Things take a long time to do at Sellafield. Again, obviously because we've got to make sure it's safe and it's all done correctly. But we don't have to apply that to absolutely everything. We certainly should apply it to the nuclear elements. But there's lots of like civil structures that, people work on in the outside world, and we could do some of that a lot quicker.
Got you. Nice. And then I'm going to ask you about leadership. So what would your leadership hot take be? What's your leadership advice? You mentioned that there was somebody asked you a really poignant question throughout your career, but if you look back and think, oh, that is the pinnacle, that's when I did my most learning, or that piece of advice stuck with you, what would it be?
Yeah, it's probably not a certain point in time or something that somebody said, but I'm gonna come back to something you once said to me as well. So, again, I was talking to Tom earlier, and we've talked about young people leaving school, and you should have a plan. But somebody once told me, who'd been in the military, no plan survives the first bullet, the first shot. So you should have a plan because you need something to work to. But if the plan starts to fail, it's not the end of the world. I've ended up in a job which is very different to what I set out to do, and that'll happen to people. So don't overstress too much about what you've got going on today. Just keep learning, just keep growing, just keep developing. So whatever you're doing today, learn to do it to the best of your ability. If something else comes in, learn to do that to the best of your ability, and just keep going. But I'll go back to something I said earlier. Learn through your experiences. Do the academic side of things for yourself, not for your company, to bring those experiences together. But the important thing is the experiences, not the ticking of the boxes. I remember you saying to me, "You've ticked enough boxes, Alan. Chill out. Just stop."
Doesn't sound like me at all.
Stop feeling like you've got to justify yourself or prove yourself. You've ticked enough boxes. Just enjoy where you've got to, and enjoy the experience that you've now gained. So yeah. So believe it or not, you had an influence as well.
That's saying something, please. And then I guess the last bit for us, we always sort of wrap up. So you've mentioned, and I think I already know the answer to this one. But we do have a healthy debate on the Chatterjack Pod about university or apprenticeship schemes. Now, you mentioned that you're a dad of 4, and I'm going to say that the personalities of each child is very, very different. But if they came to you and said, "Dad, am I going to university or am I doing an apprenticeship?"
Apprenticeship scheme, without the shadow of a doubt. Get yourself into work and start to learn. You can do a university degree whilst you're working if you go with the right company. But get some experience first, and then do something that means something to the job that you're doing. There's a risk that you go to university and you end up doing something completely different. And like my personal view, working class background, the issue with that is you can land yourself in a lot of debt that you've got to pay off at some point. there is another side of things where I do see the argument that people going to university are getting out there in the world, they're mixing with different people, they're seeing a different part of the world,
You could still do that with your apprenticeship, right? You could
yeah.
move cities or whatever.
I think looking at myself, that maybe that side of things is the only thing I haven't done so much of getting, and that's perhaps from having a family so young, which I have no regret about at all. But I probably haven't got myself out into the wider world beyond West Cumbria as much as I should have. I have to some extent because I've had opportunities with Sellafield, but maybe not as much as I could have. But yeah, my own kids, I would say, get into work. So I've got a 22-year-old daughter now. My eldest daughter's 22, and she got into work, got a job. She's progressed the career ladder through her application of skills that she's adopted through childhood growing up. Some very similar to myself, even not so good ones. And she's now doing her degree because the company's recognised the talent that she's got and they're paying for her to do the degree. So for me, just get out there and get some practical experience.
Amazing. And then one lasting piece of advice, again, if you could say to Alan, aged 18, oh, Alan, what would you tell him?
Don't drink so much. No, in all seriousness, what would I tell Alan, aged 18?
You probably mentioned it before, slow down.
Yeah, slow down, give yourself a break. Yeah, definitely.
That'd be advice.
Yeah, I still need to tell myself that now. Take the pressure off. Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely worldly sound advice. Well, this has been really good. Thank you, and I appreciate that. Yeah, there's some things that we cover. Obviously, there's a lot of things happen at Sellafield we perhaps can't cover up, so I appreciate the time that you've taken to come and to chat to us today. So, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you as well for joining us. So that wraps up our episode of the Chatterjack Podcast. Please feel free to give us a like, a comment and a share. It makes such a difference that you probably don't even know, so we really appreciate it. Thank you again, and we'll see you all soon.